After several speculations, President Bola Tinubu recently returned from London to announce a cabinet reshuffle, which has been on the news for a long period of time now. And a lot of Nigerians have been wondering when eventually this would take place. Well, President Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle last week Wednesday has continued to generate diverse reactions from Nigerians. Tinubu's ministerial cabinet shake-up on Wednesday led to the removal of 5 ministers and the appointment of 7 new ones who are currently awaiting Senate confirmation. The presidential spokesperson, Bayo Onanuga, in the news the other day said Tinubu appointed new ministers for humanitarian and poverty reduction, trade and investment, labor, livestock development, and of course junior ministers for foreign affairs, education and housing. My name is Anuluwapo Stevens, and this morning in our Lagos studio we are taking a critical look at the cabinet reshuffle and expectations. But before we move over to the meat of the conversation, let's have a feel of what Bayo Onanuga said in Abuja on Wednesday.
The President has approved the immediate implementation of 8 far-reaching actions to reinvigorate the administration's capacity for optimal efficiency, pursuant of its commitment to deliver on its promises to Nigerians. The 8 actions approved by the President include: 1, as the Minister of Information has already told us, the renaming of the Ministry of Nigeria Data Development to Ministry of Regional Development to oversee the activities of all the regional development commissions. These are the following ministers who have been discharged, and as you know, the President met them this afternoon to thank them for their services for the nation. They are as follows: Barrister Uju Ken Ohaneye, Minister of Women Affairs; Lola Adejon, Minister of Tourism; Professor Tahir Mama, Minister of Education; Abdullahi Muhammad Guazo, Minister of State Housing and Urban Development; Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Minister of Youth Development. So only 5 ministers were discharged.
Right, so only 5 ministers were discharged. Now the question is, are Nigerians excited about this, or are you expecting more removal from the administration at this point? Anyway, joining me in the studio to talk more about it is Mr. Kennedy Otumba. He is a public analyst and he joins us live this morning in our Lagos studio. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you on independent television and radio.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to be here.
So how are you doing today?
Thanking God for His mercies of our life. Interesting.
What do you make of the rejig? When you heard the news, how did you react to it?
Well, it wasn't filled with much of nostalgia, because I want to believe that is a response to the clarion call of the people in view of the precarious situation people are going through across the sector, bearing in mind that there lack of delivery in terms of capacity across almost sector, which is telling much on people in terms of their hardship, hunger and anger, inability to be able to afford the medical services. The people could not buy drugs. PMS has increased, which is only the lifeline. So I think the whole regime was in response to such a clarion call of the people. And initially people are filled with nostalgia, thinking that the mind of the people, the thought of the people, the will of the people, as is related to what is currently going on, as related to hardship and what people have openly complained about, was dashed, in the sense that it was just a kind of reflection, that shows a lot of issues. So we receive it with mixed feelings, in the sense that yes, we have a lot of merits and a lot of demerits in it, but most of the critical sector that people complained about, most of the sectors that people have not been able to feel the reasonable impact, sectors were not mentioned. Take for instance power. We all saw what we've
Right.
gone through
So
power.
before we move over to all of that, I'd love us to still scratch the surface of all of this, because I remember months ago when the Tinubu-led administration came on board to say, we are going to sack you ministers if you do not do well. We're going to have an appraisal of all of your activities that you've done so far so good. A lot of Nigerians were having high expectations. Now, with what we're seeing so far, would it be right to say that Nigerians were expecting a major rejig as regards, determining the one that we have now? Because as we speak, it's just a minor rejig that happened, with just 5 persons being removed and then 7 new persons coming on board. Were you expecting more?
Incidentally, let me be frank, we were expecting 70%, almost 70% of the entire structure to be rejigged, so that you can inject new blood into it. And what we have seen so far is also trying to balance, to create a balance. Take, for instance, if you say you sack 5 ministers, out of that 5 ministers, you are now bringing in you sack 5 ministers, and you are bringing in 7 new ministers, and in the sacked 5 ministers you do, only 4 substantive ministers were sacked, and in the new that you announced, out of that 7 ministers, 4 substantive ministers were brought back, and 3 junior ministers were reassigned, were brought back. Some were reassigned. So if you look at it, it's just, creating the balance. And if you look at it carefully, what we've seen so far, though if you look at it in terms of critical evaluation, most of the sector that we could say we give kudos to the president, they probably trade and investment. Trade and investment currently being under Dr. Tinuke Oduwole. It's a step in the right direction, because she has been the senior special assistant in the last regime under the office of vice president. Also, she's been involved in ease of doing business, and also she has been involved in quite a lot of activities like presidential enabling business, environmental council, and investment, which she currently holds before. So it is appeared to us that she has more than 7 years of cognate experience, so which to us is a step in the right direction. So we'll be able to deliver. And if you look at it, the other Anita, who was the former, the former was a minister the former was a medical director and a financial analyst, and you will see now that's why we're saying now that some aspect need a critical look. You need to bring somebody crunchy in the field that understand the nitty-gritty, that is tested and tried in the field. Now that's no ruling that she will not contribute. Now, as a junior minister, maybe she's going to facilitate the issue of creating an industrial revolution, being able to create necessary finance. So if you look at it, it's trying to balance the whole thing. But what we're now talking about critically is that we now want to look at some other, even this minute, will it create any formidable effect? My answer is no. If you see, when you reassign people from one point to the other, it takes at least 3 months for them to get used to the new environment. For instance, the Minister of Sport, the Minister of Sport was scrapped and put under National Sport Commission. Incidentally, the person that was appointed to the National Commission had the issue with the FCC, which brings a lot of questionability in terms of moral conduct, in terms of corrupt practices. And if you move from Minister of Sport, you are now coming to trade and investment, it will take some time for the person to adjust to it, to be able to learn from the rope. So if you look at it carefully, it was just a surface thing that was done. And think of it, another aspect of it is the Ministry of Niger Delta that was renamed Ministry of Regional Coordination. If you look at in terms of that, you will see now that not much has been done. For instance, the Minister of Regional Coordination is going to take into consideration all the Northeast Commission, Southeast Commission. We're now seeing South coming in. And when you look at carefully about Ministry of Niger Delta and also Ministry of NCDC cover beyond Niger Delta. He extended round to Ondo area. So we're beginning to see there's a need of balance, and we now begin to question even the Minister of Niger Delta that was there. What are the track record of performance? What can we ascribe to him as being achieved when you now rename and expand the scope? I want to believe that is the first phase. There is still going to be another shake-up, because a lot of other ministers are there that, to the best of the knowledge, It is when the people feel the impact of the minister we say things have been done. But that's not ruling out that the administration has not fared well, in terms of what we have done. For instance, we've seen the special performance of the finance minister in terms of how to be able to coordinate monetary policy, how to be able to control the foreign stabilized investment they were talking about. We've seen the budget and planning. We've seen digital innovation. We've seen the issue of health. Aviation is there. We have seen the track record of aviation.
Right. So with all of these names you have mentioned, looking at all of the names drastically, were you shocked by any name hired and fired?
Interestingly, I was not really shocked by those that were fired. But
really? So let's take, for instance, the Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy, who has always been in the news for interesting reasons. And she has always had clashes from one news up until another. That generated a lot of reactions on social media. What would you say regarding that?
Let's be frank. There's a difference between when you create a sensational social media affairs and you are really dealing with the issue. If you are a minister is supposed to look at the formulate policy, implement policy, execute policy, or create a understanding, not to you now create a comedic approach to yourself. And also quite a lot of issues are involved in issue of financial transaction, issue of repositioning, issue of leadership, issue of control. I mean, when you lose grip on what you are doing, that means you now begin to show yourself on the social media trying to say you're working. It is not the duty of the minister to start visiting people one by one and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to charge them to court, I'm going to do this. These are the lowest of it. I'm saying now that a minister is a professionalizer for
right.
So that's to the best of my knowledge. In that aspect, I'm not really surprised.
So with what we've seen so far, what do you think were some of the metrics being used to fire and hire? In the whole sense of this.
Let me be frank. One of the strong metrics that came out boldly is the issue of political insinuation, political consideration. You've seen clearly now that, let's take for instance, Ministry of Tourism was scrapped. Ministry of Creative Art also were matched together. But incidentally, Ministry of the Minister of Creative Art was not part of that, was sacked. It's only the Minister of Tourism that was sacked. You understand? Are we now saying the tourism do not do anything? Because what we could only see from creative art is the media propaganda that we're seeing, trying to talk about the potential. He's not talking about the potential we're talking about. It's about being creative, innovative, and turn around the destiny. We've seen the creative art. We've seen all our musicians. We've seen what we have been able to achieve, what our musicians have been able to achieve. These are bundle of talent that could be harnessed. We've not been able to. So that I'm seeing, looking at it carefully, that it was much of political consideration was given in order to balance. Take for instance, one of those ones that comes out is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. People are beginning to, if you look at it, I mean, yeah, though she's a step in the right direction, she's a rampant in the wrangle, but we're saying if truly we're talking about core competence, if truly we're talking about capacity, competence, and character, she has forever been existing. Why did we hire her at the first instance if we're linear? So we should add those at the insinuation we are bringing in. That's not saying she will not. So she is now on a spot to deliver based on her core competence. That is what it is. So what we're saying that, for instance, the Minister of State in charge of police affairs that was drafted to go and be in charge of another ministry, which is the Ministry of Humanitarian. We're beginning to see why she was in the Minister of Affairs, of Police Affairs. What significant track record can we ascribe to him? Has police affairs been rejigged? Has it been restructured? Has it been repositioned to be able to burn a navy? And what are declared deliverables? Where you see now that most of the deliverables were internalized. They were not deliverables that were open to people, that are open to experts like us to be able to dissect. So you're beginning to see what we could only see that was clear is the issue of political consideration. Take for instance, we're talking about defense. You are still seeing, so we're beginning to see now that, okay, we've been able to say 300 community, we've been able to have over 3,300 terrorists have been done, 100 communities have been arrested, but the veracity of the terrorism, the veracity of kidnapping has not stopped till date. The issue is still, we are beginning to look at what that constitution has been given in terms of the minister, and also there are complacent issue concerning the Minister of Defense, Minister of State of Defense, which eventually was brought to play that it was all a ruse. But were there any proven evidence? Were there investigation that was conducted? Were there reports? So we're saying now that if you look at it, it's all an attempt to balance the structure. We are all loading for 2027 because to the best of my knowledge, we're almost ending, the administration is ending 2 years. And by the end of the 2 years, by the end of 2 years, you understand, you only go into third year. Third year is preparation for the fourth year.
Now,
so,
what I can deduce from what you said, another better way to put it is political patronage.
It's political
now,
patronage.
interestingly, this is not the first time we're talking about political patronage on this platform regarding all of this. So how will it affect the issue of governance?
The issue of governance, yes, to the best of my knowledge, there will be a lot of a rejig in the system, but it will not be as cleansing. The cleansing effect will not be as when core competence are put into it. You know, we are almost brought to the lowest ebb of our national life. Life is becoming extremely very difficult. People cannot even afford 3 square meals. Transportation has been very hard. Price of petrol is over 1,000. The issue of dichotomy in pricing has introduced a lot of problems. People can't afford to eat, talk less of going to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital and see what people are going through. Yet we say we've attracted about $3 billion into it. When all this thing comes about, it means that even the new people that we have assigned have to take time to learn through the road. We're saying 3 months. So if you look at 3 months, given November, they've not been able to, they have not been able to go through the scrutiny of the National Assembly, you know, for them to also scrutinize them, be able to. So what we're looking for now, in view of this situation, we will not want a case where you just take a bow and go, just like we did in the other subsequent ministerial appointment where they were taking bow and go. Now that they now have their portfolio named after them, no, prior to this time they didn't have the portfolio. Now they now have the portfolio named after them. We expect the National Assembly, which is the Senate chamber, to be able to conduct a due diligence in order to find out what major rejig. This now is now saying what major rejig are we going to have? What major innovative and creative idea are we going to have? And then 2, what tactical, you know, we're not going to focus too much on strategy. Strategy which is 2 or 3 years. We are talking of what tactical approach are they going to put to problem? What are the major defects? What are the major functionality in the last administration that they want to come and they will work on?
Now,
so we expect them to have such.
Interestingly, this rejig is happening at a period where a lot of Nigerians are going through a lot. We're facing inflation, we're facing food inflation. The issue of power is there. I hear in the north, they've been out of power for a couple of days now, and right now they are beginning to speak about it. There's so many things happening now in the country, and I'm sure Nigerians will beg the question, will this recent move by President Bola Tinubu administration give out the desired change they are looking forward to for this that they have done?
Interestingly, I have said it and I will repeat again. It will create a change, but not as formidable as we are looking forward to it, because we're almost brought down to the lowest ebb of our life. Think of any structure that was there. We're beginning to, even in the other ministries that were not touched, what impact have they made? In power, what do we do? In steel, whatever. In marine economy, in water, in transport, in agri. Take, for instance, the new Minister of Livestock coming to look at the livestock, and yet we scrap Minister of Niger Delta. You know, Minister of Livestock is only it symbolizes the activities of the issue of cattle rearing. We are beginning to have a substantive ministry to it. Now, even the Minister of Agriculture has not delivered on the mandate. For instance, there's still food scarcity. There is a lot of issue concerning it. We are now seeing now that if the Minister of Agriculture has not delivered and the minister is reinstated, we now begin to see what other constitution we're giving. The only constitution we're talking about is the political constitution. We believe in subsequent year there must be another level of realignment. I want to trust the president to the best of my knowledge that the swapping cannot just come about, because if the swapping comes just like the people are looking about it, it will distort the entire process. I think that I want to believe that it's a face-by-face approach in order to allow the system to be stable, but I still want to hold my trust in the government in the sense that that government will be stable, because most of the policies we're talking about, that desired policy we need to go through in view of what we have gone through. What we have gone through in the past, in the last administration of Buhari administration, has set us back more than 20-30 years. In fact, the World Bank is saying that for us, even with the implementation of the current reform and economic policy, we're looking at 15 years. That tells you that if you're looking back with the implementation, it means the drawback is more than 15 years. But be as it may, we're still not going to lose hope in the entire process. We have our president who is going to stay for 4 years. All what I'm now saying is this: let's continue to make our voice heard. Remember, government will have their way, people will have their say. People should not stop their say, because at a point when the say overwhelm the way, the say will become the way.
Now, after all of these things said and done, I mean, the last time on this platform, we're talking about 48, 49 ministers thereabouts. Right now, we have almost 50 ministers. What do you make out of this number at a time when Nigeria is going through a lot, where we have some debt to be paid, where it's pretty difficult for an average Nigerian to feed and to do basic things, and we have this outrageous numbers of ministers? What does it mean? What are the implications of this?
The implication is that nothing is done. No impact in terms of creating a lean approach. We've been talking of recurrent expenditure. Government should reduce their expenditure. What the government have said, by this appointment, you state they are maintaining status quo. That's what it means. Because we now have 48 ministers. And many of these ministers have not delivered on their mandate. So what the government is saying, yes, they are maintaining status quo. They must have their reason. That's why I say that is the government having their way. But we people are looking at the fact that, look, in view of the situation in the country, there's a need for us to rejig the system, to reduce the recurrent expenditure. Also, as of today, we are borrowing money to pay. We are borrowing money to pay our debt service. That's the truth of it. How much are we generating? Probably we're generating 18 trillion. Look at what we did. Though we've been able to reduce the payment of the debt from 98 to best of my net to around 63, which you claim. But how are we financing it? Is it not through borrowing? So, and the borrowing, look at of today now, the debt we had is 134 trillion. That is the debt, look at, and the total debt we're having. I'm proud to this administration that May 2029, we're only having 77 trillion. So if you look at it, we are in excess of 60 something trillion. Though the basic thing is the issue of devaluation. We're beginning to see how do we rejig. But there still, there is a light after the tunnel.
Speaking about lights after the tunnel, as we tend to wind up the conversation this morning, what solution would you actually prefer to the federal government to help out all of this, really?
First solution is there is still the rejigging should continue. In the sense that it is not to keep large number that matters. It is for them to deliver. And also, there's a need for a prompt accountability of people in position of power. Let us demand for accountability, because they are spending quite a lot. And also, why I said there is a light after the tunnel is then that since the policy is right, Nigeria has just joined the BRICS nation now, which we believe will give us opportunity, you understand, in terms of increasing productivity, in terms of reducing the Western imperialism, which is the issue of the loan debt that we had, to give us opportunity for us to do loan buyback. So I'm saying now that the array of opportunity. But what is important to us is that the government of the day should think of how to reduce their recurrent expenditure. Even when we have a lot of opportunity, by the time we have an inflow, quite a lot. For instance, we've not been able to attract substantial level of investment into the country. The president in last address mentioned about $30 billion. That $30 billion was only a commitment. There was no, it was only a commitment. Maybe it's now we're beginning to have few billions coming into it. So you will see clearly now that we still have a long way to go. And come to think of the ways and means of 30 trillion that we said. The government said they cleared. No, they've not cleared. It was just a prorated for over 40 years. We really
need to go now, because I mean the conversation is always an unending one here, and I really must thank you, Kenny Otumba, for creating our time to join us this morning.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, that's our bit this morning in Lagos regarding the cabinet reshuffle and expectations.